Surprise! So the surprise is I don't have a regular talk. Oh, yeah. Today is about everything you always wanted to know about unity and were afraid to ask. So you have the opportunity to ask a question today. In your bulletin, if you took one, is a little card. And you can write a question on that. We're not going to take questions from the floor because we would be here forever. So write a question in your card. What about unity? Now, I'm not answering questions about unity of Salem. I have been here not a year. I am able to answer some questions about Unity Worldwide Ministries. I am able to answer some answers about what we believe and what we teach. And it'll be very boring if you don't ask any questions. I'm just saying. So get out your card in your bulletin, or we have cards available if you would like one. Jane, anyone? Please ask a question. You could say, what's your middle name? I don't care what you ask. So I'm going to start off with a few things that I've been asked most often as a unity minister. The first one is, anybody guessing? Are you Christian? Are you Christian? Has anyone else been asked that question when you tell them you go to Unity? And what did you say? Yes? Of course? No? No? Yes? Not exactly. Sort of. Isn't that interesting? That's why we're called Unity. Some of us feel comfortable with the terminology of Christian, and then we might say, well, what does that mean? So in my experience in Unity in all these years, most of my life, 60 plus years in Unity, things have changed. We used to be called Unity School of Christianity. It is now called Unity Headquarters. It is now called Unity Worldwide Ministries. It is no longer terminology about Christian in our name. We had a big Zoom call, thousands and thousands of Unity ministers on a Zoom call last spring. And the question came up, do you use the word Christianity in your marketing? 60% of us said no, and 30% said yes. And that is okay. Depending on your demographics, where you're located in the country, and what your spiritual community is like. However, when we use the word Christian, we do not mean traditional Christianity. Would you agree with that? We do not mean traditional Christianity as Jesus on the cross, taking communion, being saved. When we're talking about Christianity, we're talking about the Christ within. Would you agree? Yes. Thank you. And when we're talking about Christianity, we're talking about the teachings of Jesus, the parables, the philosophy, and the ancient stories that have come down through the ages that have been actually connected to Jesus. And our history shows that those stories and parables were many of them before the birth of Jesus. Next question? Yes. Oh, yes, that would be excellent. Would the person who's the greeter today pick up the questions? And who would that be? That'd be Jane. Jane and Jim, would you raise your cards? Thank you. So the next question I'm often asked is, do you believe in the Trinity? Has anyone ever been asked, do you believe in the Trinity? Oh, we're going to have lots of questions. I have to watch the clock. May have to do it more than one Sunday. Now, how many of you would say yes to we believe in the Trinity? Yeah. Which one? Well, thank you. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. How many of you would say yes to that? Okay. How many of you would say no to that? Okay. All right. So here we are. We're called unity. Is there a right or a wrong? Many of us were educated, grew up in traditional churches, and grew up being going to Sunday school or meeting with the priest or all of those different things. And we have a particular viewpoint. Now, unity does teach we believe in one presence, one power, and we do not believe in an opposite power. There is really a metaphysical interpretation to the Trinity in unity. Now, there's no right or wrong here. We've noticed. We are we're a salad. Smorgasbord. We're a salad. We're a smorgasbord, and we're good. There's not a right or wrong here. The interesting point is that we all have a different view. We all have a different viewpoint. Now, I have also been asked, are you saved? Now, the first time I was asked this, it was long before I was a unity minister. I was in my early 20s. I wasn't a mom yet. I was living in Illinois. My husband and I had been transferred to this little bitty town, Mount Vernon, Illinois. I was teaching in a country school in a town outside of Mount Vernon, Illinois, who had about 200 people. And my very, very good friend was a born-again Christian. I love her dearly. And one day, she wanted to convert me. And she brought out the Bible, and she began to point to things that I could not say yes to. Now, I didn't stop loving her, and she didn't stop loving me. And we were still the best of friends when we moved away. So there is not a right or wrong. We all use language and words and ceremony in different ways. And is that all right? Yep. Yes. Yes, it is to me, and it is to unity all over the world. So let's see if I need my glasses. I do keep the right to refuse the question. I'm just saying, it might be too long to answer. And if anyone has a question after the service, please come up to me, and I'd be glad to answer your question. Once again, there is no right or wrong here. Unity is filled with people of different beliefs, different viewpoints, different ways of thinking and seeing things. We all have such unique backgrounds that it's a gift that unity has. We don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to be chocolate chip cookies. We can be peanut butter. Have to be lighthearted. What did unity start? When did unity start? Who started? So we were started by a husband and wife team in the late 1890s. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle had been ill for many years and had been told she was dying of tuberculosis. In those days, in the late 1890s, there was very little they could do for tuberculosis. They had 3 young sons. They lived in Kansas City, and they were looking for a new way of thinking. Now, they had read Emerson, Thoreau. They were college educated. They were into Theosophical Society, all kinds of ways of thinking. And they began going to lectures. Many of you know this story. Myrtle Fillmore heard. She's not sure. He said, you can heal. You can heal your body. There's one presence and one power. It was said many different ways over the years. This woman in the 1890s got a medical textbook, looked at it and visualized her lungs and began blessing her lungs, talking to her body, revitalizing the energy in her body. And she got better and better and better. Well, all her neighbors noticed, her family noticed, and they prayed and meditated, Charles and Myrtle, every night at 9 o'clock. And the light went on. So their neighbors knew. Well, all of a sudden, word spread. It went around the world. People were connected to their family members around the world, and it came back, and they were asked, could you teach us how to pray? Could you teach us how to visualize? Could you teach us how to think in a new way? And that's how it all started. It is now over 150 years old. Our headquarters are in Kansas City, Unity Village, and there's much more to that story. I will stop there. How does unity suggest in our lives? Anyone know who wrote that? Oh. How does unity suggest we use the 12 powers in our lives? So unity teaches something called the 12 powers. And the 12 powers are the divine powers that everyone has. There's 12 of them. And Charles Fillmore identified them as the willingness to know that you have power in your life. You're not powerless. So you have the power of strength. You have the power of wisdom. You have the power of zeal and energy, like Victoria. You have the power of many different things that we could talk about. But it was a sign that you have the power in you. It's not out there. It's not up there. It's not down there or over there. It's right here. And when we learn to access those 12 powers and we learn how to use those 12 powers, it's life-changing. It's life-changing. Is there a phone number to call to hear the daily word? I don't know, but there is. It is online. Daily Word is online, and you can call Unity Village. Okay. Daily Word is Daily Word was started by one of the sons of the Fillmores. Charles and Myrtle did not start Daily Word, and it is the one thing that catapulted people into knowing about unity. People began to buy that little Daily Word, send it to a friend, and then we had the Wee Wisdom magazine, the longest children's magazine ever published in the United States. Oh, good. Explain metaphysics, my favorite. And the Bible. Okay, let's do that in 2 minutes or less. I love that question. So metaphysics is the way we interpret spiritual texts. We look to the hidden inner meaning within the spiritual texts. Now, we know through history, through scholars, that the Bible and many spiritual texts have been brought together as different pieces. They were never written at the same time. The people's names on the books, Matthew, Mark, those people didn't write those books. Those names are there to honor people. And the texts have been changed over and over. Now, one of the things is that most people could not read or write in this time frame of history. And so it was the scribes who translated or wrote it. And many times they put their own interpretation into the text that we call the Bible or whatever we would call these spiritual books. So metaphysically, we look at the story as a story that can teach us. We believe that everything in that, not everything, many things in the Bible, in spiritual texts, are meant for us to interpret and learn from in our own lives. So I love the story of the seed. Where did the seed land? You might remember that parable. Or the prodigal son. That is the story. That's actually an ancient story. Jesus wasn't the first person to ever tell that story or share that story. So there's an understanding that metaphysically, how is this part of my life? How does this influence me? How does this teach me how to respond to something in my life? Anyone here just opened the Bible and said, okay, what you got? I mean, I have a problem. I have a challenge. And there's 2 of us, 3 of us. Okay. Well, maybe not. And just opened it and said, what's in here for me? And many times there's a seed thought and sometimes not. Now, we have a huge metaphysical Bible. Now, the Charles and Myrtle Fillmore studied with rabbis for years on the original names, what they meant in Hebrew, the original places. Now, you have to know the city of Jerusalem, the city of Bethlehem, those are names that are symbolic of something. It doesn't mean it occurred there. There are names of people that are symbolic. They doesn't mean those people were named that. So it's a very different way of looking at the Bible and seeing that we have to know that the Middle East, first of all, likes to enhance their stories. I worked with a young man who grew up in the Middle East. He spoke Aramaic. He went to Bible college in the Middle East, and he and I worked together in my Unity ministry. And he said, you have to know, we love a good story. And we enhance everything. So don't ever take this literally. Don't ever take this literally. It is meant to expand your mind, to open your heart, and for you to find within you what that means. Thank you, Dale. I am pleased that you may or may not agree with what I'm saying today. What religion was first, Unity or Unitarian Church? Well, we have similar roots, Unity and Unitarian roots. Ralph Waldo Emerson and Thoreau were both Unitarian, came from those roots. And I always say we're very similar. Their service is different. They use the term, we believe in no holy other. So, and I have done services with Unitarian ministers when we brought our congregations together, and it was absolutely fascinating. And we're all one. We just have different practices and different words. They tend to be a little more intellectual, scientific, and I would say political. And we love them. And I love working with Unitarian. Some of my best friends have been Unitarian ministers. We have a few more to go. Are we having fun yet? Yes. Okay, good. I should put on my glasses. Many meanings, words for love. In Greek and Hebrew, what exactly does it mean when we talk about love? Now, there is a great question. What exactly does it mean when we talk about love? Because we talk about romantic love. We talk about spiritual love. We talk about love of the environment, love of our animals, love for my blue jacket, love in so many terms. And yes, there's many interpretations. For me, love is spiritual movement. When I spiritually connect, when I spiritually, understand, when I spiritually feel. Love is a feeling. It's an energy. You can't I always say this. You can't buy it, you can't borrow it, and you can't barter it. It is invisible, and we all have it. It's innate in every one of us. Now, how do we use it? How have others treated us with love or called it love? And yet we want to remember that love is spiritual, it's innate, and it is for us to use. Use to heal, use to overcome, use to create. Next question. Oh, that's good. This is interesting. How do I integrate? Would someone be willing to tell me who did this? How do we integrate the external presence of God and our knowing that we are divine? That's a great. Oh, Joan. There we are. Let's go to it. The divine is in every cell and molecule on the planet. In 3 weeks, I'm going to start a series on science and spirituality. They have chosen that every cell is beating at the same rate when they're connected. Doesn't matter what nationality you are, what religion you are, what color you are, you're gay or straight, doesn't matter. We all have the same cellular beat. I'm using that word. It could be called something else scientifically. So that energy reminds us that God, this is Victoria speaking now, universal presence is what we call it. Some people call it God. Some people call it good. Some people call it universal presence. Some people call it Jesus. Some people call it Buddha. It is the all. And we cannot be divided from it. So when we think it's outside of ourselves, at least to me, I think I'm divided from it. Now, I was taught and grew up in a ministry where God was up there. However, I had a very close childhood relationship with God. I talked to God all the time. I asked God for support. And in my spiritual growth, I realize now I was talking to the one in here. And I was getting answers from the one in here. In my experience, that was not something I was taught. And that is not right or wrong. It doesn't matter if we think God is outside ourselves or inside of us. It is. There is one presence and one power, out, in, around. The universal presence is moving through us now. Here. How does the unity explain Jesus dying for our sins? Well, we don't believe in sin. I'm just saying it. We don't believe in sin. That is an opposite power. We don't believe in evil or the devil. We believe in one power, one presence, in you, in me, in all. And so we do not believe in the concept of hell, purgatory. That is a belief system. I don't want to upset anyone that believes in that. However, that is not what we teach. We teach there's only love. There is no punishment. there is only forgiveness. Hmm. 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 Does unity, boy, we are just getting there. Does unity believe Jesus is the Son of God? What do you believe? What do you think? We all are the Son of God. Does anyone believe that Jesus was more than we are? He was a way shower, teacher, enlightened, carpenter, maybe, maybe not. We don't really know. But certainly, whether it was Jesus was a person or there was more than Jesus that was teaching what he was teaching. There were many rabbinical schools at the same time that Jesus was teaching, and they were teaching love one another. So that he was not the only one teaching that, but he was the one, and I certainly would not in any way take away from Jesus. I love the stories. I love the energy. I love he wasn't above or he didn't think of anyone being above or below. Everyone was the same, and he treated everyone the same. So we honor that. We honor that. Died for his sins. I just, yeah. It was, in that time there was such political strife and so much going on that things were misinterpreted. We don't really know, as my friend Hanny used to say when they talk about 3 days in the tomb, that is symbolic. When we talk about the tomb is symbolic. When we talk about the time in the world at that time, the leaders, yes, a lot was going on in that area of the world, but it wasn't specifically the way it's portrayed in the Bible. We're almost done. Surprise! Okay, we're done. Round of applause. Thank you so much for your willingness. It's important to talk about these things. It's important to be able to ask questions, and it's important to just discuss where we come from, who we are, and where we're going.